you are new here, welcome. I'm so glad that you found me. I'm so glad that you are here. And if you are not new here and you're already part of my family and you're already subscribed to this channel, well, welcome back. Today, I bring you another episode of the Black Heroes and Sheroes of Today interview series. This next guest that I present to you is like literally my homegirl. She's my mentor. She's my big sister. She's like, I don't know, like she's so many things to me wrapped up in one person. But at the end of the day, I can really only describe her as iconic. Dr. Raven has taught me and showed me that you can be, the coolest person in the room, but you can also be the most studious person in the room. And through her, I have felt like, you know what? I can be more than just the vision that I have in my head of what I should be. I can be that and so much more. And so with that said, I'm gonna let you guys get to know her as I have. I hope that her story inspires you. And I also hope that her story also inspires you all to really immerse yourself in the work and really reach out to your community. So with that said, I present to you the Dr. Raven Jones Stanbrough.
Where are you from?
Okay, so again, my name is Raven Jones Stanbrough, and I hail from the wonderful, wonderful Motor City of Detroit, Michigan, particularly in an area called 7 Mile on the west side, near Henry Ford High School. Yeah, that's where I'm from. Happy to be a Detroit native, still live here and reside here currently, and we'll get into that a little bit later.
Awesome. And as a lady who is proud to be from the D, can you describe your academic background?
So my academic background, as far as I can remember, stems back and goes back to being a student in Detroit Public Schools. So from K through 12, I've always been a product of Detroit Public Schools, starting with Holcomb Elementary School, where I met my awesome third grade teacher, who I'm still in contact with today. Up until transitioning to Coffee Middle School, which was led by Janice Lindsay at the time, who was the principal, and then matriculating on to Henry Ford High School, where Dr. Elijah Porter was the leader and administrator there. Yes. And then from there, we made it on to glory at Michigan State University, home of the Spartans. Go green, go white. Yes. So I spent some time there majoring in English, and after graduating from Michigan State, was able to obtain my teaching certification at Mary Grove College back here in Detroit, Michigan. And from there, fell deeper in love with words and English, and did a summer program in linguistics at Harvard University, which led to me going back to Michigan State University to get that good old doctorate of education in curriculum instruction and teacher education. Bam.
Wow. In so many words, she did that. Mm-hmm. She did that. School. I mean, it's very, I would say it's rare. I don't want to say that word, but I would say it's so refreshing to come across somebody who has such a passion for school.
Yeah.
That came into school like ready to like kill it. Like, absolutely. I know that school and education is so important to you.
Absolutely.
And I'm just so excited to really just hear you lay it out on just how this has affected you. So after you killed it in undergrad, killed it in graduate school, and then went on to become Dr. Raven, tell me how that has affected your career. Can you break down your career path?
Absolutely. So, I mean, I guess going back just a little bit, like I felt like I've always known, Amber, that I wanted to be an educator, like stemming back from even growing up and being in a house with my parents, like I was doing book reports as early as 5 years old and reading the newspaper and having to underline words and use them in a sentence every week with my mom. And then it was also a blessing to be able to see my mother as a staff member in some of the schools where I attended and where my younger sister attended also. So, the importance and being able to see the benefits of education, go back a little bit, quite some time in my family. And even beyond my mom, just hearing my grandmother's stories and her attending Snow Hill Institute in Alabama, where Spike Lee's family founded the school. It was a community in an area where prominent Black people attended, to be able to gain a little bit more knowledge or whatever. So the impetus and the foundation in terms of education being very important and salient to our just rising was always sort of in front of me, and I began to understand it in meaningful ways at a young age. So it's always been a thing, and it's something that I still make sure that I try to lend to the students that I teach, because essentially what I do for a living is teach teachers how to teach. Whether you are an in-service or pre-service teacher, I work with our teacher preparation program at Michigan State University, which has been the number one or ranked number one in the country for the past 25 plus years.
Hey,
right? Go green, go white, all around. So, we're doing some good things over there. And I've been able to sit in a classroom and be a part of meetings that discussed such important knowledge and pedagogies to be able to offer some joy into the curriculum, right? Because guess what's going to happen? When you're in front of young people, they're going to be able to sniff out if you like them or not. And what I've learned in my career and in my orientation into humanity is that you gotta show up truthful, and you gotta show up authentic when you occupy the space and the time of young people. And that's something that I'm very, very serious about, right?
Yeah.
I much rather be around younger people as opposed to older people, because we faking the funk too much, and we line and test the line, doing all that. You know what I mean? It's like, get yourself in front of a young person and remember who you were back then. Remember who you were before you had life's constraints and, taking in the world's ills, to forget about the joy that you had when you woke up on Saturdays watching cartoons and eating cereal. And you know what I mean? Like running outside because you hear the sounds of the ice cream truck. Like, find you some young people to chase after the ice cream truck with. Okay?
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? Look,
Absolutely.
I'm preaching to myself.
Surely, in pursuing your goals, even through your academic years, were there any obstacles that you faced? Were there any tough bumps in the road? Because I'm sure liking what you're majoring in and liking what you do is kind of half the battle. But were there any struggles that you had along the way?
Yeah, I mean, what person is living without a struggle or two, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, related to the career, mostly before I could even obtain a teaching certification, I had to pass a certain amount of tests. And Amber, I was just like a really horrible test taker. And for a number of tries, I couldn't pass what's called the basic skills test. It's like a preliminary test that you take before you can even be admitted into your particular college to study what you wanted to study to obtain your teacher certification. So, I mean, that threw me for a loop, which is why I didn't receive my my teacher certification through Michigan State University, because I couldn't pass the test to get into the college to even be granted to take the courses and all of that. So I had to study a little bit more, which allowed me to be accepted into Mary Grove's program and to study education that way, and to receive my degree in paperwork and certification through that. So that was quite a few years in which I had to really focus and just kind of not be distracted, and to really, really go in like underground on some underground stuff. Like, if you ain't trying to go to the coffee shop and talk about, all these theorists and who these people were in education and what these things mean, then I really don't have time.
Yeah.
So, just meeting those educational goals and requirements. I've always felt okay with the writing portion of things, because that's really like my love and my passion, is like putting together a 5-paragraph essay. Child, you can't tell me nothing about the writing process. Like,
oh, yes, yes.
It's my whole like thing. It's my whole situation. So I would be upset because sometimes when I would like apply or try to get into things, I would do so well with the writing part of it. But when it came to, doing that math or answering these story problems, like your girl was coming up short. There is an urgency when you're not good at something, or like, I have a loved one who I don't know if they're good at something, but I know what my experiences were. So I'm going to kind of caution them to maybe try it this way, because I did it another way and it didn't work out so well. So let me, gift you with this knowledge. But it was a struggle. It was a struggle with the mathematics. And even being in college, I still had to obtain math support and like algebra support through a lot of those classes. Some of which were like the preliminary, like basic classes, but there was a large percentage of Black and brown students in those classes because of where we came from, based on what we dealt with in our K-12 experiences, and just maybe not having all the support that we needed. But math and STEM related things have always been something that I chose second or last. As a I'll frame it that way. See, I just reframe. I won't say that I wasn't like good at them, but I didn't choose them first. I didn't.
Understandable. Yeah. And so I know that you have a love for literacy, reading, writing, all that type of stuff. Cool. So let's get into it. Let's get into the Zuri Reads Initiative. Can you let the people know about the Zuri Reads Initiative?
Yeah. So first of all, a lot of people don't know, and every now and then, Daryl, partner, roommate, bae, all the things, we every now and then get to share the story with folks. We got into an argument, like a really, really heated discussion many years ago, just about some deficits that we were seeing in the city, just related to literacy opportunities and events for young people to be able to engage in and have fun with, or even the fluency which you would be able to see certain events. Like we just weren't seeing it. Like, okay, so he was complaining and just talking like, you all these organizations out here, but they not doing this, they not doing that. With me, it was a conceptual thing. With him, he was naming like specific organizations and groups, but not naming himself or not naming us, right? So like when you live here in this house, you can't name others and not name yourself if you aren't contributing to something. Okay, like everyone who lives here understands that there's only 3 of us, right? But we all fully understand that if we see something that is missing out here beyond, this square footage where we occupy, then we need to be figuring something out there, either to ally with somebody or just to be a think and a collective partner with different people and organizations out here. So he was blaming everyone else, but not saying what he would do. So I was like, well, what you gonna do about it, basically? And he was like, oh, well, then he told, I don't got time. And I'm like, no, you can't say that you notice a deficit is out here and is vast and is deepening and is widening, but you don't have an entry point into how you want to combat that, or how you want, to lessen that in a lot of areas. So that's kind of where the conversation started. And then we began to brainstorm about what it would look like for us based on the resources that we already occupied and that, we already held, to be able to do something, even with our limited work schedules already, because we're both pretty busy people, but we still wanted to be able to offer something, out there. And at the time, we had a daughter. Her name is Zuri Hudson, and she was just such a cool and special little kid to me. I had the privilege of remaining at home with her for a number of years before I returned to work. And we just had a whole lot of fun. And I just really paid attention to how she was learning. Again, I already had some former knowledge being an educator and having had a lot of experiences teaching elementary school, being able to see how children, how their light bulbs went off when they noticed things, and when they would struggle with things, I noticed that too. Or when they would begin to tell stories or lie about things, I noticed when those moments were happening also. So I just wanted to, you know, use her as inspiration to be able to pay deeper attention to what kids could do, what they knew, and what was, you know, possible for young people out there. So in 2017 or late 2016, we came up with the idea of the Zuri Reads Initiative, and we would just basically begin with having these monthly gatherings of family literacy meetings, right?
Wow.
So we would come up with the space and invite anybody out there, whether you were 0 to 100 years old. We had something for you to be able to enjoy in the space, whether it was related to math, science, English, writing, reading, storytelling, just being able to play, kinetic and, you know, manipulatives for young folks. We had everything, you know, just based on however old however old you were and whatever grade you were in. And so our very first event took place in January of 2017 at the University of Michigan Detroit Center here on Woodward Avenue in downtown Detroit. And we occupied and held that space for over a year, and we began to outgrow the space. So we had to reach out to some other folks to be able to utilize their space to house our idea that we started with just our own money, our own thinking, and our own manpower and support based on our village believing in us, right? Because I mean, clearly we'd be nowhere without the village. So the Zuri Reads Initiative is largely birthed out of ideas from 7 Mile. It's largely birthed out of canon of our grandmothers. It's largely birthed out of the storytelling of your mother and your aunts, you know what I mean, and your uncle, and just the different people who want to see us make it, who want to see us shine, who want to see us be a part of different communities that are going to allow us to see ourselves and to make our own voices. So, you know, we're still out here kicking. Zuri is taking more of an active role with the Zuri Reads Initiative. So, you know, we try to give her time to shine with her own segment that she does on Wednesdays now called Word Up Wednesday. And she's been doing that for a number of months now. And it's just, it's growing. It's growing and we're excited. I'm sure I'm leaving out so many different things, but I just wanted to, you know, kind of scratch the surface just a little bit for you.
What does excellence mean to you?
You know, honestly, to me, it really, really means not being comfortable. Like never, ever just resting on your laurels when you know that there is a greater assignment on your life. Like I know that I was created and destined and purposed and breathed into this particular assignment to lead God's people in this way by way of teaching. Like I saw good teaching, I've lived through good teaching, I've seen bad teaching. And so the people who stood and who have imparted in front of me, in a lot of ways, I didn't see them be comfortable. Like they kept going, even maybe when there were, you know, circumstantial sacrifices happening all around them, or even when there was sinking sand. You won't get to your greatest when you're comfortable, when you're just, you know, kind of just sitting there or living off the success of someone else, right? Like it's very imperative that we understand the purpose and the design and the calling to be able to move forward and to not be comfortable in any one thing. You can't do it, or otherwise you will miss out on so much if you don't move. If you don't move, you will miss out.
I want to know who is, because I learned from Word Up Wednesdays who Zuri's favorite Black history icon is, but I want to know who your favorite Black history icon is and why.
Oh, I wasn't prepared. I was not prepared for this question. Okay, because there are just too many, and it's so funny because I feel like the majority of them are from like that Harlem Renaissance era of just Black wonderful prose and creativity, and just I'm out here thriving, and we just lit. You know, we look well, we dress well, we're out here just shining. I am a huge fan of Langston Hughes. Like I can't even front. Like I am a fan of the of so much of his work, and I see myself in a lot of those poems. My favorite, hands down, a lot of people know, is Mother to Son. It's just so captivating and just wonderful. I also do love Nikki Giovanni, but I'm getting into a lot more contemporaries too, like even local folks like Jessica Care Moore. I'm a big fan of hers, who actually doesn't live too far from me, and she's done a lot in our community. And her son is now a poet and attending Detroit School for the Performing Arts. And then
Yes, and Miss Stacey Abrams.
yes, right. Like it's just so many of us who are just out here doing it, Amber.
Well, that was our last question for the official interview. But of course,
Okay.
before we go, we gotta do the rapid fire round.
Oh God. What is that?
Yes.
What does that mean?
Novel or poetry, like book of poems?
Poetry.
Poetry.
For sure. Yep.
Okay.
Right.
What would make you the most happy? Receiving extra credit
Ah.
or having an essay canceled?
The extra credit. Oh, let me write that essay. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Let me tell you something. Look, it's the most iconic moments of school is when you have waited to the last minute to do that essay anyway, and the old teacher was like, you know what, y'all, I'm gonna push the deadline back another 2 weeks.
Yeah. Those were heavenly moments for sure. Absolutely.
I'm gonna push that assignment back, and the people who actually did it on time is angry because it's like, okay,
now I gotta wait an extra 2 weeks for my feedback, because I wanted feedback. I wanted to know why you loved it. I wanted to know how I could improve it. Right? I was always looking for that written feedback.
The library or the student center?
The student center. Definitely the student center. In our union, or the student center was the multicultural center, which was where like all the Black and brown people were gathered, and there was like a computer lab in there, and all the offices of the marginalized communities were down there. And every time we had a Black Student Alliance meeting, they were in that building. So
this has just been wonderful. Like I said, like this is the conversation that I've always wanted to have with you, and to really just deep dive in and see, like, who was Raven the student, who is Raven now as
we covered a little bit. There's always so much, and even in hearing you ask the questions, like there was so many things that came to mind. It was just like, oh my gosh, for another time.
Yes.
I appreciate just your brilliance and your thinking and your commitment to seeing us shine out here as Black people, because we need these spaces, we need these stories. We always will. We know the truth, and that we've always been winning and have always been fine and excellent, and just
and moreover,
people
not gonna talk about people from the D. Okay, that's another subliminal thing I want people to take away from this. Okay, people from the D, honey, are doing things.
We are absolutely, and we will continue to do things. Absolutely, I love it. You're so awesome. Thank you.